All right, so I just got a chance to check out Pluribus, the new Vince Gilligan series on Apple TV Plus, and this is my most anticipated show of the year by quite a lot, to be honest. I was just looking back, and this is crazy to me now, but it was 2022 in the fall time. When we heard that Apple was greenlighting, 2 seasons for this new Vince Gilligan show, and ever since then, I mean, I've been following every single detail, and to the point where, it felt kind of surreal to actually, be watching, this first episode or the first 2 episodes here, and it actually be here, and available to watch. That was crazy to me. Even just the fact that, we released the first look and the name of the show and everything months ago, and at that time, I was like, November? Really? That seemed like so long, and all of a sudden it was here, and I've now watched the first 2 episodes. So, yeah, just a surreal feeling. Probably one of my most anticipated things, in the last 5 years or so, in TV or movies for sure. Just really looking forward to this one, and I'm happy to say, even given those huge expectations, this did not disappoint at all. I do have maybe 1, maybe 2 criticisms, and I really had to kind of dig deep because I didn't want this to just be review of just praising it nonstop and just be kind of like a fanboy type of thing. I tried to find a couple things with this because I did love these first 2 episodes, and I think they're really great, especially the first one. I think is amazing episode, but there was just something that was kind of missing here to me. Maybe it wasn't kind of what I was expecting as much. Maybe I was going into it with kind of the Breaking Bad lens, right? Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, one of my favorite shows of all time, of course, and huge, Vince Gilligan fan. And so maybe I was kind of going in with that lens, even though I knew that it wasn't going to be that. So yeah, I don't know. There just seemed to be a little something. It was kind of 99% I was on board, with these first 2 episodes. It was just that kind of nagging 1% of okay, why isn't this, absolutely perfect? There's something kind of holding me back. So I'm going to get to that in just, a few minutes here. But first, obviously, I want to start off with, what was amazing in these first 2 episodes. And like I said, particularly the first episode, which is called We Is Us, I believe. And to me, the first thing I thought of when I see that title, I'm like, the We Are? Severance? Right? And I did get some Severance vibes here. I don't know if that's maybe just, the fact that it's kind of another sci-fi twist, another series on Apple TV, I don't know, and that title just kind of reminding me of the We Are, kind of like a similar, title for the episode that kind of makes no sense, but in the context of the show, obviously it does, and so I got some of those vibes, with it, but the first episode is just amazing, specifically the tension, from really from the offset of the episode, where we get, the discovery at the satellite place. And I will talk as well about kind of all of the different, things that Vince is really drawing on here. And right away, when I saw those first few shots, I was right away thinking of the movie Contact, right, with Jodie Foster, a sci-fi kind of thing where, of course, they contact aliens, and I think it's from that same base with all those satellites there. And so right away, I was thinking of that. But it's just even from that point, but especially the point where, what happens to Helen, right? Her, I believe it's her partner, right? We don't really get that, clearly, but we see pictures in the house and we get the idea that obviously they were partners and they were living together, and it's when she goes down, right, when they're at that bar, and every moment after that for the whole rest of the runtime of the episode is just a masterclass at building that tension, right, over and over and over, one scene coming to the next and to the next, and it just flows so great, and to the point where you reach the end of the episode, you're like, holy, that went by so quick, and especially that kind of sequence there. And I think there's multiple long takes as well as part of it, right? So it kind of builds that as well. The one long take is where she's kind of driving down the road, and you're seeing kind of the chaos that's ensuing as things are just breaking out, as part of, what's going on, and everybody turning at once, right? And so, yeah, it's just amazing tension building. And he was so good at really the whole, writing team and directing team was really great at Breaking Bad. To me, that's one of the best, qualities of the show, and Better Call Saul as well, was just their ability to build tension. In these scenes, in these episodes. I think of an episode like 1 Minute, right, in season 3 with Hank. How Gus calls Hank in the truck and says, you have 1 minute. And of course the brothers, the Salamanca brothers, come after him. The scene again, season 3. I think it's called Sunset. Where Jesse and Walt are stuck in the RV and Hank's, kind of bearing down on them. He's trapped them now in the RV, and it's just this massive, building up of tension until that payoff comes, right? And so, again, just masterclass. Box Cutter, another great example. Again, amazing at, riveting up the tension there and getting you invested. So, from basically beginning to end, that first episode is so well done in that regard. Even the second episode, a little less so, of course, with the tension, but there is still a little bit of that tension, of course, with, what are these other people going to, how are they going to respond to Carol? Are they going to agree with her? Is she going to be able to talk them out of this, right? And it appears that she isn't by the end of the episode, but you do kind of get that tension there as well. So, really great. And then, of course, yeah, Rhea Seehorn is absolutely amazing. Really, I mean, to be honest, exceeded my expectations even. I knew she was very capable from Better Call Saul, but even this, like, the tone is also so Vince Gilligan-esque. You have some laugh out loud moments in the first episode, as well as the second, to be honest, and she is just nailing some of those moments. Again, she did nail those in Better Call Saul too, but I feel like it's being ramped up a little bit more, the tone of that and the kind of balance of the comedic, side of things. And she's doing an amazing job with that. And then, of course, the dramatic moments, really great in that. And she is really, front and center, to the point where I noticed, like, in the credits of the first episode, it's like starring Rhea Seehorn, and that's it. She's the only main cast member, the starring cast member in that episode, which is pretty much unheard of, right? Like in TV, that's pretty much unheard of. Movies as well, like maybe something like The Revenant with Leo or something, but I think Tom Hardy is still, credited and is still in, a lot of the movie, or some of the movie. So, yeah, really crazy. This is unbelievable. The work that she's doing, and especially episode 2, I thought was really great. So, she's just amazing stuff. And another thing I noticed, which goes along with her performance, is how little dialogue was used in that first episode. And again, this is where I get to, the point of tension and just Vince Gilligan's directing ability, which we see on full display in these first 2 episodes, is the lack of dialogue, and yet you still know enough. Even just that first kind of montage sequence of how the outbreak starts with the rat, biting the woman, and then we just kind of go from there with them swabbing their mouths and everything, right? And again, like very little dialogue, if any, in that entire sequence, and yet we know exactly what's happening, and he's able to ramp up that tension, and for us to, and even then, like, the dialogue that we do get is pretty meaningless, really, right? Like, I guess it obviously develops character for Rhea Seehorn's character, Carol, and Helen, but outside of that, like, it doesn't actually, it's not furthering the story or the plot. It's really just seeing those 2 characters and getting an idea of who they are, but very little dialogue other than that in that first episode. And back to Rhea Seehorn, she is so good with very little dialogue. It's those facial reactions, it's, the emotional moments, even just all the physical stuff that she's doing, putting Helen's body up on the pickup truck in the first episode, digging the grave in the second episode, like, it's just so much of that, and she's just really nailing it so far. So, really great stuff there. And then I really wanted to talk about, of course, the kind of themes here, right? And, of course, the kind of Twilight Zone-esque, so I guess we'll get to that again, kind of where he is taking inspiration from. This is really it really does feel like an episode of Twilight Zone. Just the concept, and even like especially the second episode, where it's kind of playing on the same concept of, okay, what if the entire world was just happy, right, at all times? And happiness is contagious. That's kind of the line of the show, and it very much is that. I mean, it's pretty much like the happiness virus, right? And then, of course, with one person, at least in our first episode that we know, one person left who isn't like everybody else. What are they going to do with that, or how are they going to react? Do they want to be happy, or are they going to try to stop this, right? And so really, going down to that, another point is like the individualism, that it's really getting at, with the hive mind type of thing. And of course, Vince has said this himself, but as many people pointed out, the Invasion of the Body Snatchers comparison here, Vince has openly said, that he's taking inspiration from that movie and that story, obviously. I think it's the novel, that the movies were based on. And so, yeah, it's this kind of hive mind, as she literally says in the second episode, of pod people, which is a direct reference to the movie and the story. So, it's this individualism where, to the point where I think audiences around the world who aren't, from the U.S., North America, or kind of the Western countries, if you will, of the world, may actually, view this slightly differently. I don't know, right? Again, that's just my perspective, so this is the way I feel, in that I kind of default to agreeing with Carol, right? In that, she wants people to have their individual freedoms and their own thoughts, and, it's not, they should be individual. They should be separate from each other and be unique, right? And the whole, concept of this virus is that it's a hive mind. Everybody is the same. Everybody's equal. Everybody's happy. And this kind of thing. And so it kind of does pose an interesting question there of, is it worth it, for that hive mind, if it brings about this happiness and this unity of everybody. Right? And so that's an interesting part. And then, like the Twilight Zone part of it, especially in the second episode, I feel like he really, goes into the whole, idea of, okay, so if there's one person or, a few people that are left, and, everybody else on Earth is, open to appeasing them at any, cost, really, they want them to be happy, are they going to take advantage of that, right? And it's just like such an obvious, clear Twilight Zone, type of idea here, right? Is, okay, here's this scenario, here's this concept, here's this character placed in this world, and what is he going to do? Yeah, I mean, we see, the kind of, opportunistic side maybe of this scenario where, this guy I think he's from Mauritania or something, and he's just, having sex with all these, hot women, and just completely taking advantage of the situation, flying on Air Force One, and all this stuff. So, really fascinating, concept, and I'm wondering if he's going to play with that with Carol as well. I'm sure, just looking ahead, I'm sure that we're going to go there, right? We're going to at least get to the point where Carol has to question if she also wants to be doing that, right? If she's also going to take advantage, or is she going to keep fighting, against this and try to end it, try to find a cure, for this hive mind, for the happiness virus, right? So I think that's definitely going to be a part of it. And again, that's where I see the Twilight Zone comparison. So a lot of deep, material here with the themes that he's playing with, and just the ideas here where, again, it's such a fascinating concept, of this happiness virus. But at the end of the day, right, like it is, a similar thing to the apocalypse or, this type of, the world ending, pandemic type of thing. It's just with a slightly different twist, right? And again, it's kind of playing on that kind of Twilight Zone thing of, okay, yeah, here's this kind of sci-fi twist, but it's really not, sci-fi, right? Like, in a way, the show is not really sci-fi. It just is that kind of initial conceit of, this virus and the sci-fi element of that happening. And then it kind of creates these themes, room for social commentary, as Twilight Zone did, political commentary on things, right? Society. social issues and this stuff, and it kind of gives a room for that to happen, right? And so I think it's just really brilliant, really, really well done in that way. So yeah, just really great stuff there. The shots here, really great. I've already praised Vince Gilligan's directing, but yeah, I mean, some of the cinematography off the charts in this. The long take, a couple long takes in the first episode, the second episode, just some really great angles, and really love the whole opening sequence, the cold open, if you will, of the second episode, where we see the pirate lady, as Carol refers to her as. I think she's played by Caroline Wydra, who does a great job, by the way. Yeah, and we see her get on the plane and fly this plane, and so right away we get the idea he's trying to reinforce this fact that they really are the hive mind. Anyone can do anything because they all have the same amount of knowledge that any professional or genius might have. Also the lowest person with very little education and now has that same exact knowledge and skill set and can do anything, right? And so really great job, and kind of did bring me back to Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, where they had the brilliant cold opens all the time, where even you would have moments or scenes where you were like, who are these people? We've never seen them before. What is this scene doing? And then, of course, by the end of the episode or by the end of the season, you would, figure it out, and it would all make sense, and they'd all bring it back together. And I'm not even sure that we've seen the extent of all of that so far, which I'm sure will happen. But, in this second episode for sure, we see that with the opening sequence. So really great stuff. Everything here is just really great. So now let's get to maybe a couple criticisms, maybe, things I'm just kind of wondering. The first being is that I don't know. It's only been 2 episodes, so maybe this is early to say, but I'm just not sure, where the end point is, right? Or where we can, keep going for episodes and episodes. And Vince has now said, I think in some interviews, that he thinks 4 seasons and max for the show. And even then, I'm thinking 4 seasons, okay, right? Because the way that this show is that, it's already set an endpoint, right, to the show. And it's kind of akin to kind of a mystery box type of thing, right? Severance is the same way. Yellow Jackets, a recent example of this. Lost in a way, but they kind of kept moving the goalposts in order to, further, more seasons of the show. But certainly Yellow Jackets is a great example. If you haven't seen it, it's about these girls that get stranded. And of course, they set up right away, the end point of the story is them getting rescued, because they do different timelines, and we know that they get rescued in the end, and that some of them make it back, right? And this show, again, it seems like we already have an endpoint in sight, which is, inevitably, Carol either failing or succeeding at, basically overturning what has happened with this happiness virus, finding a cure for it. Either she succeeds in that or she fails, and this is just how life is, right? But that's the end point here. And so it's unlike something like Breaking Bad, for example, Better Call Saul less so, because we know kind of what was happening there, but Breaking Bad for sure is we don't know, right? After the first episode, after the first few seasons of the show, we don't necessarily know that endpoint right away, because it is kind of just an ongoing drama, very character-driven in that case as well. And this is a little less like that. It's a little different for Vince Gilligan. And so to me, again, I maybe don't think this is a negative, but it's just something I've noticed is, okay, we have our endpoint in sight, so let's see how he's able to kind of craft this story and make it entertaining, and add that mystery element to it, as well as Severance and all these mystery box shows do. Or is he maybe going to go the Lost route? If he's going to do 4 seasons of this, is he going to have to move the goalposts at times and kind of, develop stuff like this? So I'm sure he's got it all planned out, of course, as he, did masterfully, with Breaking Bad and helping Peter Gould with Better Call Saul. So I have full confidence in it. Just something I wanted to point out. And then the other one, which maybe could be the only criticism, is just a bit of the lack of stakes in this, especially episode 2. But I feel like episode 1 as well. I just think it could have been maybe a little bit, left a little bit more mystery there for Carol, in just the fact that if we figured out pretty quickly that she was immune to what was happening and that she was going to, be okay. She wasn't going to be affected by the virus. And I think you could have held on to that a little more, to the point where maybe we find out at the end of the first episode or something, that she is in fact immune and so she's going to be fine. It would have added to the tension even more, if that's possible, than what, we saw in the first episode. And same with the second episode, right? Like, the stakes for her, I mean, really the only way that she's going to harm, herself or get harmed is in her own doing, right? Like, if she dies somehow, it's probably going to be her killing herself. And I don't know if they're going to go into that, with the kind of depression and suicidal kind of thoughts later on in the show, but because everyone else wants her to live, wants her to be happy, and will bend over backwards to see that happens, that she's okay. And so with that, the stakes are kind of a little lowered here, right? At least for our main character with Carol, which again, Breaking Bad, you knew probably, that Walt was going to live through most of it, but the stakes were always pretty high, in this, very tense situations with Gus. You didn't, I mean, maybe you kind of thought, that he was going to beat Gus, but there were some really tense scenes where it could have gone either way, in season 4, especially in that finale End Times, right? So, just maybe a little bit of lack of stakes, and maybe you could have, hid the kind of, reveal that she's immune to it and that she's gonna, live. I guess they kind of tease in the trailers and stuff too, so maybe they could have pulled back a little bit on that. But anyways, that'd just be my only criticism. I was kind of grasping at straws, and that's kind of what I came up with. But other than that, this is really great. I mean, this is really, really great. Is it what I was totally expecting? Maybe not. Maybe it wasn't quite, that kind of Breaking Bad kind of character-driven story I was initially expecting. But it's even like exceeded my expectations still, with just the way that I thought it was kind of like Twilight Zone, dystopian, sci-fi, right? These are the things that we knew about it. And so in that regard, I think it still exceeded those expectations of what I thought it may be. But maybe I was kind of longing for another Breaking Bad, and this is just not that. And so maybe it's time to accept that as a viewer and then, move on. And I think I have after these first 2 episodes now. So anyways, really looking forward to the rest of the run here for season 1 of Pluribus. Like I said, we for sure know we're getting 2 seasons of this. And the marketing and the media has just been unbelievable, for this show. Apple has put a lot of money, and Vince and Rhea Seahorn and put on a lot of time in these interviews, and it's everywhere right now online. So kudos to them, because again, it is a little harder to sell this project. Obviously Vince Gilligan, maybe is a household name, maybe. Rhea Seahorn, definitely not, though, just in terms of, TV, critic circles, of course, but in a common, popular crowd, that's just going on a streaming service and see something they like and they click play, they wouldn't know who these people are, right? So it is a little harder. So I get that they're really putting a lot behind this, and so it'll be great to see more people get on board with this, and really get invested. So I really hope this is a big show for the rest of the year. So anyways, love to hear what you guys thought of these first 2 episodes. Do you agree with me? Do you absolutely love this? Was it perfect? Do you disagree? Did you have some problems with it? Not what you expected? Love to hear from you guys either way on this one, of course. And I hopefully, will be covering, I'm not sure if it'll be more episodes, but definitely I'll be doing a review when the season wraps up, and kind of share my thoughts on how it all, ends here with season 1 and all that stuff. So stay tuned on the channel if you're interested at all in that. So anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching this one, and we'll see you then in my next video.